Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and cockles. Now the #1 House of the Dragon podcast in the realm, presented by Bolin Media. I am your host, Ross Bolin, joined as always by Barrett Dudley. And Barrett, it's finally here. The time is now. The hour is nigh. Winter isn't coming this time, but we both are, because House of the Dragon is here.
It feels so good to be back.
Have you noticed?
I don't know what that's from, but it's popping into my head right now. So I'm rolling with it.
A lot of people
are doing the dragons,
mistitling this show.
Yeah, just House of the Dragon, baby.
There's just one dragon in the title.
There's just one dragon in the title,
and in the house.
No, there are 10 dragons in the house.
No, it's the House of the Dragon, though.
Well, right.
In that house.
In one house, there's one dragon.
In the literal house, they have 10 dragons. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
At this point in time.
In the house of the nomenclature of the show, it's a singular dragon.
Sure.
Yes.
What were your nerves like before this first episode began?
Look, man, today was a fun day. And a few hours before the show came on, it really started to hit me.
Me too.
Yeah, and I had to run to the grocery store. I made dinner a little early, and I was chopping up dinner, and I had dinner on the table in the bowls, ready to go with 3 minutes to go before the show.
Ooh.
So it was
really cutting it close there.
I was really cutting it close. I was also getting more and more nervous, just in general. The thought started creeping in, oh man, what if this sucks? What if the show sucks?
Well, yeah, for you and I, the stakes are even higher because we're investing quite a bit of time and energy and money into this. But for certainly all Game of Thrones fans, I think we felt a level of that.
Yes,
because look, there's no confusion here. We've all wanted some redemption.
Yeah.
Since that, really the final episode, as you and I experienced during the night's rewatch, which I would add is now available in full for everyone here on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening.
The most recent season or the whole shebang?
The whole shebang.
Whole shebang.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that most recent season was the only one that wasn't available for everyone.
Gotcha.
Now it is.
Yes.
I lost my train of thought.
Huzzah. Just at the end of Game of Thrones, we were all looking to this show.
Oh yeah, what we found
for a little
is
bit of redemption.
what we found is that the last episode in particular, even more so than anything that preceded it, was incredibly disappointing. The finale itself was a total and utter shitstorm. You and I found ways to write off a lot of the other things we saw in the rewatch. We found ways to smooth over.
Yes.
And we were Danny apologists.
We were Danny apologists.
But
I ride for the episode. You posted a little bit about it as we re-released our rewatch of the final season, which, like you said, is now available on our main feed. I ride for the episode The Bells. That's a pretty solid sode.
Yeah, I mean, I ride for everything except the final episode.
Yeah,
in
the
totality.
final episode is
an utter piece of shit.
It's hot trash. It's hot garbage.
And we've all been thirsting for redemption ever since. And so for that reason, I think we all, if you were a hardcore Game of Thrones fan, you shared some of those nerves with us. Yeah. And I certainly had Super Bowl butterflies, man. It was.
Yeah, it was. And I would say that I've never been, because of all the factors, because we are, for the first time ever, we are recording podcasts right after an episode.
Right.
This is immediate reaction. We just got done watching the episode, nominally 30 minutes ago, and this is a first for us. And so the whole thing was just I don't think I've ever had these types of feelings, nerves, excitement
for a TV show.
Which was a lot of fun.
There's a lot on the line. A lot on the line for Thrones fans.
And so, I don't know where you want to begin today.
I've got a whole outline here.
I know you've got a whole outline.
Believe it or not, a show plan.
But because we are also doing this as kind of instant reaction, and then we should just go ahead and get this piece of the housekeeping out of the way. If you want more, there is more coming later this week on our weekly Patreon installment.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So this is off the cuff, off the dome. We have a loose outline, but it's also for immediate reaction.
Oh, you and I are still going to be diving into this pretty deep today, though,
dissection. Okay. All right.
Yeah. We're going to talk about everything that happened today, and then
we're going to be here till 1, 2 a.m.
Yeah. You're going to want to clear your schedule for tomorrow because we're going through the whole episode. But the point is that Barrett's trying to make is that every week on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, we will be doing an additional ad-free episode just for our supporters on Patreon that features hotline calls from the Mollusk Militia with further discussion and analysis of every episode of House of the Dragon. So you've got that to look forward to as well. But as Barrett said, we did just finish watching the series premiere mere minutes ago. I watched it Bolin Media headquarters. Barrett came over straight to the studio after the credits rolled, and we are about to dive in. But before we venture back into Westeros together, a couple announcements to take care of. First, our podcast is available in full on YouTube all season long. So if you want to watch the episodes instead of just listen, they're right there on YouTube for you. We are also now on TikTok at Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. Give us a follow. You can get it on the ground floor. We only have like 1,000 followers right now or something like that. Also, you can buy OCC t-shirts, hats, and more at bolinmedia.com/shop. And finally, we ask that you don't skip through our ad reads and support our sponsors all season long. We work hard to bring you high-quality sponsors with products and services we believe our audience could really use. And our business relies upon the success of these sponsorships. So support our sponsors. Now, Barrett, it's time to dive in.
Okay.
Let's eat. So we start off. What?
I want because there is writing on there is so much writing on this, because this is the first episode of the entire series. We are on the precipice. We're just about to take the roller coaster down. We're just right at the tippy top. We just got a little taste. I mean, I gotta get an immediate reaction. Before we dive into the nitty gritty and break down the episode, what were your feelings?
It was better than I could have hoped for. Okay. In terms of a setup episode, I had it like it's important to note. Barrett and I are going into this completely dry, and what I mean by that is we have not gone and read any of the books.
We're just going in dry.
We have not watched.
Lube.
We have not watched any of the interviews with the cast or the showrunners. I haven't read any of the Variety magazine interviews. People keep saying like, "Oh, they've already clarified this," and I'm like, "I don't. They've clarified that for you, because you're going and reading stuff. I'm taking it on as a television viewer would, who had no reason or will to go outside what they were seeing on the screen.
You're unfrozen caveman, basically.
Yeah, what I see on the screen is what I'm going off of, okay? I'm aware that there are books. I'm aware that Fire and Blood exists. I'm aware this is the Dance of Dragons. I have a breadth of knowledge about the outside sources that exist that you could go to if you wanted. I'm choosing not to, because, as we've stated, when I did Game of Thrones, I watched season 1, and then I read all the freaking books, and I regret that to some extent. Yeah. So I'm not doing that here. Barrett and I don't know anything. And so the only real gist I had from the trailers was that this was sort of a Shakespearean like family drama situation, okay?
Palace intrigue.
Exactly.
Succession, all the things.
Yeah, and most of which are things that we would expect with a Game of Thrones titled series. Yes. And I would note, it's interesting to me that they've chosen to go, they're branding everything Game of Thrones still. Game of Thrones is right there above House of the Dragon.
And it would appear that they are one of the big questions that I had, which technically is not answered, because I do expect, and this happens a lot with pilots.
Yeah.
There's not actually like a full title sequence in pilots many times.
Interesting, right? Do you think they will have one next week?
I do think they'll have one next week.
That was one of my big questions for you, because that was a really interesting. I think we were all kind of taken aback after the cold open prologue thing. We were like, well, that was it?
To just get the little dragon sigil. Yeah, no, I think there will be something more involved. Dude, you can't have the title theme of Game of Thrones and then do one little flashing sigil for
I mean, it was very bizarre to see. I love it as a solo opening, though. I love it as a solo pilot series opening sequence. I just don't want that every week.
But the Game of Thrones, the theme music, that's been one of my biggest questions, is are they just going to recycle the theme music because it's so impactful and we tie it to everything so much, and the episode ends with it. So I do think that it sounds like we are going to continue to
and
get
we've got Ramin Djawadi back.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of like how in Star Wars, when they do new ones, they'll make music that is reminiscent of the old Star Wars music or plays off of it or like whatever, you know. I kind of hoped they would do that as well. Yep. And yeah, for sure. You get I got goosebumps. The hair stood up when they played the Game of Thrones theme there at the end.
I won't say too much more. I think you kind of covered my thoughts as well. I thought it was very good. We'll obviously talk in more detail here in just a second, but I wasn't surprised, but I was happy with what we saw. And
I'll tell you, you weren't willing to get your hopes up. You kept your expectations low so that you wouldn't be disappointed, I think.
No, I mean, I didn't. My hopes were high. Going in, I thought that this series would be good, but there's a lot of good TV shows.
Yeah. We wanted this to be great.
What's still out on the table, would still on to be determined, but I thought got off to a good start today. Is this show going to be great? And
we'll see. I mean, the table is set for what I want and what always made Game of Thrones great to me. And part of what is important to take away from this first episode is they're not going to be afraid to be straight up Game of Thrones 2.0. And when I say Game of Thrones 2.0, I mean that visually this was even more stunning. It was incredibly impressive. I mean, just every shot gave me more awe.
Right.
But it, in terms of the political, infighting of the families and all that, that's what made Game of Thrones. That was its bread and butter, baby. Yeah. That's what brought us to the table every week, and it's the thing that Succession noticed and then capitalized on with Succession, right? With the modern day version of that. So it's good to see all that, and I felt good sort of leaning back into the comfort zone, right?
Yep.
The place that we all wanted to be, that we hoped we would finish when Game of Thrones came to a close, and we weren't there. We have a chance to get back into that place.
Yep.
And, through one episode, I thought they accomplished that pretty well. So let's talk about what happened. First of all, powerful decision to go with this sort of prologue cold open that gives us the backdrop for what we're going to be dealing with here. We're first of all, we're given the information. We're starting off 170 years before the Daenerys Targaryen situation, right? So that's just something to keep in the back of your head. This is the first century of the Targaryen dynasty coming to a close, okay? So they've been at it for 100 years, the Targaryens with their dragons. And Jaehaerys Targaryen is sick. So he calls the Great Council to choose an heir. His health is failing. That's how they end up choosing Viserys the First, who's the king we end up dealing with the rest of episode 1, right?
Shouts to Paddy Considine.
Yes.
A.K.A. La Cucaracha from The Outsider.
Yes, Paddy Considine is playing King Viserys the First for us. He was chosen over, I believe, his aunt, who is, I could be wrong there, but an older relative who should have been chosen, but she wasn't because she's a woman, the queen who never was, Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. And the cold open, it gets us back into the Game of Thrones universe in a really, really powerful and effective way, right? Like that was an important scene. The first shot, that first thing you see to take you back into Westeros, man, you really, visually, it needs to hit. And it did. It was cool. It was powerful. It felt large. It felt real. It felt like, look at all these fucking people making this important decision.
So should note here that by the way, just to reiterate, we are not book readers. We just watched this episode. We have not gotten a chance to get all of our details straight.
Don't bite our heads off.
I just want to be clear about that. This is a first for us to record these episodes so soon.
I'm not scared Bear. Come at me.
So we are digesting.
I remember what it was like.
We are probably going to be wrong about some of the details, but one of the things that I caught note of here, this great council where everything happens with Jaehaerys, not at King's Landing, because that doesn't exist yet.
It's at Casterly, or no, at
Harrenhal.
Harrenhal, thank you. Yeah.
And then 9 years later, there's the Red Keep and the Iron Throne, and we're at King's Landing. Now, I don't know. Maybe
because it doesn't exist yet? I don't think they built that in 9 years.
Yeah, that sounds stupid now that I say that out loud. But why? But the question remains: why was Jaehaerys at Harrenhal and not in King's Landing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why was he not sitting on the Iron Throne?
I don't know. I don't feel like it played into the larger picture though, so I'm not sure. I'm sure there is an answer and an explanation for that, but I just don't know.
Did you not get some sense though that like Red Keep, like all that stuff was like kind of new? Am I way off here?
Maybe you're way off. I'm not willing to stand with you.
Yeah, I think I'm way off.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking through all the details, I think I'm way off.
Yeah.
Because the current king Viserys even says like this place been going to shit since.
It's a hell of a lot of swords that have melted down in only 9 years.
Since my grandmother or something like that. He says something like that.
He says it's been going into disarray since his grandma's rule.
That's right. Okay.
When they're talking about the City Watch.
But for some reason, Jaehaerys is at Harrenhal
doing that
to hold that great council,
which was cool to be in Harrenhal.
Cool and interesting.
Yeah. So we already talked about the opening sequence that comes after that, but that whole just everything we see there sets the stage for everything we get moving forward. But we get text on the screen immediately after the House of the Dragon logo. It says it's now the 9th year of King Viserys the First Targaryen's reign, 172 years before the death of the Mad King Aerys, and the birth of his daughter Princess Daenerys Targaryen, who we are obviously familiar with. And then it left the words like Daenerys Targaryen,
172 years
and 172
before
years
Daenerys
before.
Targaryen.
Just to really make sure we were in the right state of mind. And I thought all that was cool, man. It was a cool opening for me.
Yeah, I mean,
it brought me back into the universe and it made me feel excited.
I don't know if you're like kind of tuned in enough to know this, but this show is happening in the same world that A Song of Ice and Fire is happening.
Yeah.
So it's like it's the same kind of like place,
right?
That Daenerys Targaryen ends up being in.
It's really wild.
It's like a connected, shared
do you remember
world
that show,
and universe.
Game of Thrones?
I just want to make sure you understand.
Do you remember it, Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
This is the same.
It's the same
Westeros
story,
it's the
same world,
over again.
Yeah,
but before.
Right. But before.
Yeah.
But yeah.
172 years before. All right, today's episode is brought to you by Felix Gray Glasses, the best blue light glasses in the game for watching House of the Dragon in comfort and style. 5 years ago, Felix Gray set out to create eyewear that would improve daily screen time, and since then, Felix Gray has been on a mission to create a better relationship with technology, filtering out 15 times more blue light that can make screen time tough on eyes and disruptive to sleep. I've been working on the internet for over a decade. I spend like 10 hours a day staring at screens. My eyes get worn out, and when I'm done with work, I like to relax by watching my favorite TV shows and also gaming, all of which involve larger, even more intense screens. So a few years ago when I was introduced to Felix Gray, everything changed. These glasses are the quality of designer frames. It's not some cheap blue light coating painted over them that's going to come off. That never happens. No chipping, no cheapness. Just incredible quality designer frames that are stylish and functional as they protect your eyes from all the blue light that the screens we rely upon emit. There's no cutting back on screen time if you're like me, but you can do your eyes a solid and get some Felix Grays to get relief from those headaches, dry eyes, blurry vision, and what have you that occurs over the course of your workday. You could think of it as like if you were a knight going into battle, you wouldn't do it without armor on, Barrett.
You got to have a helm.
You gotsta. And Felix Gray can provide for your eyes when you go into the battle of life on our screens every day. I've got like 6 pairs. My favorite for you to check out are the Faraday, the Nash, and today I'm wearing the West frames on my face. Use our URL, felixgrayglasses.com/OCC to support the show and get free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges, non-prescription and prescription available. Check them out, felixgrayglasses.com/OCC. That's FELIXGRAY glasses.com/OCC. And if you follow at Felix Grays and at Oysters, Clams, and Cockles on TikTok, and comment on our pinned video on OCC's TikTok, you'll be entered to win one of 3 pairs of Felix Grays that they are giving away to celebrate the premiere of House of the Dragon. So follow us both on TikTok, at Felix Grays, at Oysters, Clams, and Cockles on TikTok. Comment on our pinned post, and you will be entered to win. So we dive into the present day after this cold open prologue thing with Princess Rhaenyra. I'm going to get this down. Episode 1, baby. We're doing it. Rhaenyra Targaryen. I don't know why George can't come up with less difficult to pronounce names.
They're based in Valyrian, you know? We get a lot of Valyrian spoken in this
Did you know we're going to deal with a Jason Targaryen? It's Tanner's great-great-great-grandpa.
That's got to be a connection to Tanner Lannister.
It's his great-great-great-grandpa.
They're the only people in the realm that are...
Jason.
They're just dishing out names like that.
But this is a real guy.
What is this?
He's going to be played by Draco Malfoy. I'm not even fucking with you right now. It's going to blow your mind when he comes on screen because you think this is a big joke.
Draco Malfoy is in this show?
Jason Targaryen.
It's got to be like Jasy.
Nope, Jason.
No.
Tanner's great-great-great-great-grandpa.
You're lying.
A lot of people are confused right now, and that's how I wanted it to be. But okay, so we go into the present day. She's flying into King's Landing. Rhaenyra's on her dragon. And again, I have to reiterate, Game of Thrones 2.0. There's no, like, every year technology gets immensely better. All right, we all know that.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like your television and the cameras that they're using and all the crazy shit they've got technology-wise in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's been stepped up. It's been 5 years, Barrett. 5 years. That's half of a freaking decade. You know how much cameras?
5 years since what?
Since Thrones.
No, it hasn't.
Has it?
No, it's been 3.
3?
Yeah. 2019.
Sure.
Yes.
Close to 5 years, Barrett, when you round up. And technology's come a long way since then, and as such, the dragons look tight, is what I'm saying.
The dragons
all
do
of King's
look good.
Landing looks incredible.
Do you know, I actually have this in my notes, though. I swear to God, I have this in my notes. A place where technology does not seem to exist or advance in any way, shape, or form.
Where?
Westeros. This is 200 years ago. Think about America. 200 years ago.
Yeah.
We were like shitting in outhouses with no electricity.
Yeah, but before they invented the internet, shit went real slow,
Do you know what I mean, though?
Medieval times, though?
Like from this point in Westeros to the point of like the Starks versus the Lannisters, they got no new technology.
Well, I mean, you're touching on something that's going to be really difficult for the show, which is to not make it look like they progressed forward going backwards.
Right, yeah.
So, like, I'll say the closest they come...
Maybe the catapult thingies were new.
The closest they come is with Damon's helm. Like, that is ridiculously sick. Why does he have such a badass helmet? And then nobody
yeah.
had that badass of a helmet in the new show.
Yeah,
What's up with that? So they got to be real careful with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They can't have fashion go fucking forward when you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, we've got something to keep an eye on there for sure.
Yeah, but at this rate, I mean, they're never going to discover Felix Gray blue light glasses in Westeros.
That's true.
So,
They've got to get their shit together. Somebody's got to invent a damn internet. Come on. Also, Rhaenyra, when she gets off her dragon here, she's got some kind of bodyguard helper guy. Who's this bald man with a beard who's like got a Scottish accent and is
Kingsguard.
Clearly her Kingsguard guy. Yeah.
Kingsguard assigned to
her
Rhaenyra.
specifically.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Her dragon's name is Syrax, Syrax. Cool.
Syrax, yeah.
Syrax. It's not what I would have expected, but all right.
He's almost as big as Caraxes.
They've got some X stuff going on there with their dragon names, apparently. And then from there, we see Rhaenyra go and meet with her very pregnant mother, Queen Aemma, with an A. Targaryen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Aemma tells Rhaenyra her duties as a woman and such, and that and her place in the world as a woman.
Childbirth is our battlefield.
Childbirth is their battlefield.
Yeah.
I mean, you really get the tone set for a lot of what the show is going to deal with, right? Which is this battle of the sexes almost, and really the suppression of women throughout history. But in this court in particular, she is, as we find out later in the episode, the first woman ever to be named heir. Ever. So throwing off, well, they've only been doing it for 100 years, but throwing off 100 years of tradition, which again, to your point, in the scale of things, I mean, when I think about that, it's not that long.
Right.
100 years, you know, my grandma's almost 100 years old.
Yeah, it could be one lifetime.
So it's not that long before all the stuff we see, 175 years being the full span. But we meet the king's small council, and we see King Viserys at his duties for the first time here. Small council's made up of, pretty expected grab bag of dudes.
Yeah.
We've got like Otto Hightower, who's played by Riz fans. Who else?
He's the hand of the king.
He is. He's the hand of the king. Very notable. And his daughter, Alicent, is good friends with Rhaenyra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Could be a little love thing brewing there, by the way. Just gonna
weird stuff happening. Corlys Valerian is played by Steve Toussaint.
Husband, if I read this correctly, husband of the
Rhaenys.
the queen that was not to be, Rhaenys.
Rhaenys, the queen who never was.
The queen who never was.
Husband, correct. And there's some other guys there.
On the small council.
We'll learn them later.
It's like that's an interesting choice, right? Because it's kind of like an olive branch that Viserys throws out there.
A political olive branch, perhaps?
To put her husband on the small council, not her.
It's still a big slap.
Still very,
Yeah, well, you remember from
patriarchal.
To the one piece of information that I will go on outside of what we've seen in the first episode is the trailer. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I do recall Rhaenys speaking with Rhaenyra about
all this.
The same thing that her mom, Aemma, hits her with really here, which is,
They're going to try to tear you down.
Yeah, basically. And they don't like that giving babies is no longer your battlefield.
Right.
Then we find out that Damon Targaryen, our boy played by Matt Smith, who is clearly our badass. Undoubtedly our badass, which we will get into in a moment in this show. He takes over the City Watch, which is the Gold Cloaks. The guys that we're familiar with from Game of Thrones. And he immediately goes full police brutality on everyone.
Yeah, I got to think that that there is a very clear... maybe not. Maybe it wasn't a clear point that they were trying to make. But this little scene with him and the gold cloaks where they're all doing the Matthew McConaughey chest thump from Wolf of Wall Street. And then they go out and he's like, all right, let's ride. And they just go out and like start maiming everybody. It was very, very, very like the gold cloaks are the cops.
Yep.
And cops love beating ass.
Do you think it was meant to be on the nose or is it just because here's the thing.
Yeah,
if there hadn't been all this recent history with that, this would have been totally but it did come off as like, oh wow, really
I thought it was like even in the Middle Ages, the point of the police was for everybody to be scared as fuck of them.
Yeah, I'll say this: they never gave us this full-blown version of police brutality in Game of Thrones.
No, they did not.
It never felt as pointed, where it was like, look, even back then in this imaginary world, anyone with power is a total dickhead.
Yeah. Now tell me this, Ross, because I didn't totally, I wasn't able to totally, get a grab on this. Did they just go to Flea Bottom? Where are they here? Where they are, quote unquote, I'm doing quotes here for everybody watching on YouTube, just rounding up criminals of all ilks.
Yeah, man. Look, if they're not in the Red Keep, I assume they're in Flea Bottom. Just everything else is Flea Bottom to me. So, like, if they're out there with the pores, it's Flea Bottom. But I have to guess that they would probably go in true police fashion to the most disenfranchised part of town
and
start whooping ass and
just
cutting
start
off balls.
chopping off balls, hands, arms, heads.
Fuck it. Whatever's there to cut off.
They grab that one guy who he does behead, and they say something about him. They point to him and they say,
Raper!
Oh, raper.
People were yelling stuff like that. I'll also note, I watched in true fashion. This will be one of the big differences between our ad-based episodes here, dropping right after the episodes air, and our Patreon episodes. I did not watch this with subtitles.
Yeah, same. No subtitles.
First experience has to be subtitle free.
I agree.
That's the camp I ride in. I will be watching it again with subtitles for Patreon.
Yes.
Because there were certain elements like people yelling out raper, where I was like, did he just yell raper? And later, when he named his child, which we'll get to, I was also extremely confused. But anyway, so they're pointing at people and yelling out crimes, and I was like, wait, so did these people actually do the crimes? Like, was there any investigation done here? And then I realized how stupid these questions were. I was like, no, they're just picking people to make examples of so that no one else will do crime.
I think that's right. Yeah. Because I don't think they just knew of like a spot to go. We're like, I know this one place, this one guy, his name's Jason. He's just going to be down there raping folks.
Dude, it's like in Mind Over Murder, how they just go to like the shit bar where all the shitty, fucking lowlifes in town hang, and then they pick 6 of them to accuse of crimes. That's how it goes, man. Police. Fuck them. Anyway, I'm just kidding. But they do actually, that we're not joking about the maiming in the...
No, there's a lot of maiming.
Okay, so at one point they call a guy a raper and they pull his pants down and we get a full shot of his if you pause the screen, 90% of it would be his ass.
Yeah.
And then you think they're going to ram something up it, and you're like, oh, don't do that. But then instead, what I believe they do is clip him, and they cut off his testicles.
I'm pretty sure that's what happens.
Slap him down on a table, and then they got to show you that. And my point here is, this is our first taste of Game of Thrones, HBO, gratuitous violence, and it was hilarious to me leading up to this, how they chose to market it in different ways. Like, they had Matt Smith come out and be like, tits and ass and boning constantly. And then somebody from HBO was like, no, we promise there's not that much gratuitous nudity and violence. It's going to be fine. Everyone can enjoy this with their children or whatever. And then we've got somebody's nuts getting clipped. Episode 1, snapped down on a table, bro. They went all out. And so if you thought we weren't going to go back to that place where the poop bucket existed, I mean, we are there already. They chopped that man's balls off. And they made us look at him.
Yeah, they did. And we're obviously going to get to the scene where 2 instances of blood and violence are being intercut with each other.
Dear Lord.
They're another thing in my notes is just boning with an exclamation point when everybody is watching Damon get his freak on. And yeah, this is what I appreciated about it is that it's so transparent. Like when HBO has like a big new shiny toy that they are putting in front of everybody, there is an executive somewhere over there who's like, guys, Miguel, Ryan, y'all know the checklist, right? Y'all are aware of the checklist for the pilot. And they're like, yes, we know. And they're just gratuitous with it. Like there is absolutely zero doubt in my mind that episode 2 will have a lot less violence and a lot less sex. But they got to come out and hit you in the fucking face with it and remind you, this is HBO, this is Game of Thrones, there's going to be TNA, and there's going to be a lot of people getting hit in the face with like a spiky ball mace thing.
Look, what do people talk about? Memorable moments. These are memorable moments, right?
Yeah.
The crescendo that we'll discuss later with the childbirth and the tournament occurring at the same time, that's a water cooler scene.
Right.
Holy hell, did you see House of the Dragon last night? And that's what Game of Thrones accomplished. And that's what HBO is trying to recapture. So it was cool to see them, you know, for lack of a better term, go for the throat, episode 1. Like, here it is. Here's our balls. You know what I mean? Like and I will note, they did cut some of the sex scenes in a way that were less pornographic and more appropriate for like what you would expect to see in a big Hollywood R-rated movie.
Okay.
So it wasn't like titties swinging in the wind. Granted, it was still some.
I mean, there was some of
a lot
that.
of doggy style.
Yeah, a lot of
and
doggy
some titties
style.
swinging in the wind. But
There was a BJ being doled out.
yeah, okay. Mostly the scene with Matt Smith, now that I'm thinking about it, is because he's an A-list celebrity actor, and so his scene was cut tastefully. But then he does do some full male ass. There was good ass.
Yeah.
Good man ass in there from Matt Smith. Good on him. Good for evening the score, you know what I mean? Because later he has to give a speech while everyone has been told, silence! And if you noticed, the dude in the middle of the room is in the middle of taking a woman from behind. So there's just a guy awkwardly frozen doing doggy style, listening to Matt Smith be like, give that toast that gets him in trouble.
At that point, he's just taking a soak.
Yeah, he's doing a Mormon soak right there on screen, Barrett. Anyway, point being, HBO didn't hold back. I don't know why all the discussion about it. Like, they clearly they know the buzz is there, so they tried to.
They have to. They have to.
You gotta stoke those flames, you know.
Yeah.
So, we end up watching Matt Smith bone, as do other people, which is strange. He clearly has this one prostitute. He's a friend of his.
This
though.
is you may recognize her. This is, and I didn't recognize her in the first boning scene, but then did later. This is Sonoya Mizuno, who is listed in the cast, is in the credits, so is obviously going to be a player on the show, at least for the first season. But you'll recognize.
I'm happy to hear that.
You'll recognize her from Devs and.
Wow! Okay.
Deus Ex. It's not Deus Ex Machina.
Just Ex Machina.
Ex Machina.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And a couple other things, but she's been around some and in some other stuff, and she is now like his bottom bitch, I guess.
Yeah, dude. And I was concerned that was going to be a 1-episode story arc that they didn't go to. You know what I mean? Just kind of a side character for this one to show us, look, he's also personable with people.
He lets her touch the dragon. Ross.
Yeah,
she's
big
getting
deal.
She's getting more than one episode.
Big deal, man. I think she rides off with him. And by the way, his dragon, very snake-like and swaggy. That's a swag dragon there, for sure.
Red and black.
Yeah.
I will note as well.
I love it. Love the colors. Good.
Very fire and blood.
It's the colorway for a dragon I think I would go with if I got to pick. You know, that's the colorway I would pick.
Yeah, it's definitely,
It's intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah. His helm, as I noted, by the way, so, okay, we get into this tournament, right? This tournament that has been set to celebrate the heir, which, as multiple people point out, seems a bit hasty considering the impending arrival of the heir.
Speaking of the lack of technology in Westeros, no way, even at the Citadel and with all the maesters and all their chains and all their books and all their stuff, no way to tell whether a child is going to be male or female.
But our boy Viserys is certain.
Yeah.
And he was right, to his credit.
That's true.
But yeah, so they have this tournament going on to celebrate the heir, even though the heir is not there. And I guess we'll talk tournament first before we get into the childbearing scene that takes place. This whole setup was awesome. It was the violence that you want to see, or the spectacle that you want to see from Game of Thrones or a Game of Thrones show. And it took me back to like a Knight's Tale.
Right.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to Heath Ledger. I love that movie, man, mostly because jousting is dope and it's fun to watch. And it's like every era has their version of spectacle that's like the ultimate gladiator thing for that age. Mm-hmm. This was theirs. It was the jousting tournaments. We have UFC, which is also tight. But yeah, this was, just the way they set it up, the scope of it all, the amount of people there. I don't know if you remember the jousting tournament that takes place at the beginning of Game of Thrones at Robert Baratheon's behest, but it felt significantly larger than that.
Yeah.
I mean, this was
that
huge crowds, Barrett, the biggest crowds.
The biggest crowds, yes. More people at this jousting tournament than have ever been at any jousting tournament.
Any jousting tournament in history.
That it was definitely a flex, I think, on the show. You might say that Robert Baratheon's in season 1, I believe
it was.
Game of Thrones, in hindsight and in comparison, looks kind of like a Renaissance fair.
Puny and pathetic. It did. It looked like one of those, like, what's that place in San Antonio? You go on a date in medieval times?
Medieval times.
It looked like a medieval times by comparison.
So, still love that scene. Still love that episode from
for sure.
1. But yeah, you're right. They definitely they flex that muscle. And I don't know if you got a chance to watch the little 5-minute inside the episode after this one.
I did.
But Miguel Sapochnik talks about how this was like Miguel Sapochnik is the co-showrunner here. And he, if you're not familiar, he was the guy that they called in Song of Ice and Fire to do all of the spectacle set piece battle sets. So he did Battle of the Bastards. He did.
Oh, you mean in Game of Thrones? Yeah.
In the original Game of Thrones series, he did Battle of the Bastards. He did the Knights, the final
Winterfell.
Yeah. The Battle of Winterfell. He did. He did the one with where Daenerys burns all the Lannister trains, with the name of which is slipping my mind right now. Anyway, point being, he was the big gun, the one that they always called in to do these like ginormous, incredible action set pieces.
Yeah, so he did The Gift, The Winds of Winter, Hard Home, The Long Night, Battle of the Bastards.
Yep.
He's the big gun, yeah.
Yeah, and so he talked a little bit about how like they wanted to bring something like that, at least a little taste of what was possible into this first episode, some of that spectacle, and this was their moment for that.
It worked because, yeah, I mean, look, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's going to be weird, this balance of like, if things are bigger and brighter and shinier here than they are in the Game of Thrones era 175 years later, I guess there are ways to work around that, though. It's like based on who's ruling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe these guys just throw a much better fucking tournament than Robert Baratheon's people did. Maybe they've got better party planners, but
just a better master of coin. You know,
maybe
what I mean?
that. Yeah, there's a lot of different factors that could play in here, Barrett. So
guys neck deep in a Ponzi scheme, and it's really working out for them.
It's paying dividends, and now they're having the biggest and the best tournaments and the biggest crowds here in King's Landing.
I thought it was there was some casual mention here and there about how this was like the current realm, and since Jaehaerys has been peacetime. It's been peacetime.
Right.
There hasn't been a war. There haven't been any wars. Now there's a mention in that first small council meeting of something called the Triarchy, which is definitely something that I need.
Seems like it's going to come
subtitles on. For later in the week.
There's some kind of rebellion building, it seems like.
Something going on somewhere in the realm. But this...
Corlys is keeping an eye on it.
Yeah. But thinks that action needs to be taken. But this jousting tournament, because like it gets so unbelievably violent, and it felt a little bit gratuitous, I thought, personally. But then there's like, they kind of, I thought, offer an interesting explanation, which is like, these guys are soldiers. They are all knights, and there is nothing for them to do.
This is how they let out their aggression.
So, like, this is like kind of the manifestation, one of the ugly manifestations
of no war.
Basically. Right. That they don't have anything to do. They're not training. They're not like getting,
they're not off doing raids or whatever.
They're not running raids and running tactics and planning strategy and all that type of stuff. So
soldier stuff.
So things kind of tend to get out of hand at these types of events in peacetime.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I have no idea what the hell happened here, or why all of the sudden, like 4, 5, 6 knights were just murdering each other.
Basically, my impression was like Damon Targaryen was like, "All right, this is actually for me. This whole thing is for me. I am that dude, and don't give a shit about whatever y'all are celebrating. So all of you guys fight each other, and then I'm gonna pick some of you, and I'm gonna fight some of you too." All right, so that's how this is going to go down. Go ahead. And then everybody is cool with that, apparently.
Like, one guy just gets mad and rips the other dude off the horse, and then all of a sudden there's like 4 people getting, like, scalped with an axe.
This was when the gratuitous nudity, or not nudity, the gratuitous violence really started getting poured on heavy, like to the point that one of the people I was watching with got sick. He left the room. Like when the dude's head got smashed in with the
mace?
Morning Star or whatever it's called. He left the room because he was like, nope, sorry.
The one where like a pickaxe goes down into the guy's face and then cleans off like the top half of his skull.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
That was pretty fucking gnarly.
I mean, they really went in there. But the thing also to remember, on top of the fact that we in the modern day 2022 sickos do enjoy on some level watching shit like this, it's also the fact that these people in medieval times and in the you know, many generations ago, people watched some pretty sick shit to get their rocks off. Like the gladiator stuff was gnarly. Stuff like this was gnarly. And
yes.
They definitely didn't hold back on us here.
No, and like you said, I mean, like we live in a society now, and so we've tamed ourselves into enjoying just like, you know, dudes ripping their ACLs apart on a football field, or guys like getting, you know, slugged in the face,
rubbing their blood all over each other on a mat,
all over each other in the octagon. But yeah, but obviously there is still some of that
bloodlust.
Yeah. There's bloodlust.
It's in the human beings.
It's in the human
There's
beings.
Something wrong with us, man.
Yeah. We are the virus.
Because I'm watching this going, oh, you know what I mean? Like that's my reaction as a sick dude. I watch this and go, oh fuck, shit, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, at the same time, I do kind of get queasy, like a little bit.
Yeah, my stomach kind of knots up.
Now, but here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. This type of violence, this like night on night bullshit, it completely does not faze me.
Yeah,
compared to the violence that we see with the childbirth.
Okay, right.
You're talking surgery, I'm out. I'm not watching surgery. You're talking surgery without modern medicine, I'm way out.
And to your point, I think that was another kind of good explanation for this violence that they were showing.
Woman's battlefield, man.
Is that right? And they were obviously, putting up the two as somewhat even. Like this is awful and graphic, and also this is awful and graphic, and like this is bloody and painful, and this is bloody and painful, and people die in both instances. And like you said, there's very little aid that they can give women.
There's only so much milk of the poppy, man.
In this era, they can't give too much milk of the poppy, and it's very brutal. And I would also say that my partner who I was watching with, I'm pretty sure she started shielding her eyes, not when guys were getting smashed in the face, but when they brought out the scalpel to like. I mean, do a C-section with that nobody will recover from. I was
really tempted to not watch this scene.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife is pregnant, man. Like, I'm not trying to see this.
Yeah.
But I, as a professional, as a podcaster,
you had to.
I pulled myself together, and I stared at it, and it was awful. And I'll say this: when they took out the knife, I went, "They're not going to do this, are they?" And like Jared's sitting next to me, he's like, "I think they might." And I still appreciated the way they shot it. Okay, because they never give you a full blown like horror moment that's going to give you nightmares that night, like irrevocable horror film shit.
Yeah.
They skirt the line and they give it to you enough for it to have artistic meaning, which is that, look, this is what women went through for thousands of years. We didn't have anything to do for these people when they were giving birth or having babies. And a lot of the time, it cost the mothers their lives. In a lot of cases, both the child and the mother would die.
Yes.
And it is a miracle that we are all here today. It is. It's insane. And I mean, the miracle of childbirth is probably the coolest thing about human beings, point blank none. I mean, bar none. So it's like, they want you to feel that, painted up against the backdrop of everything this episode has touched on, which is like, the giving birth is the woman's battlefield, and that men are off doing this violent nonsense, and it's just like, that's the way of the world, right? And man, it was something else.
It was an intense.
It was something else.
I don't know how long that was. It felt like it was half the episode.
It was about it was at least a 20-minute scene from the tournament when it gets into
starts the tournament,
the childbirth stuff, which we can touch on in a second.
Yeah. Other notes on the tournament. There's a guy, House Cole, I believe. Kristen Cole is the name that I think I heard.
Sir Kristen for sure.
And he does battle with Damon and bests him in a duel that shockingly shockingly does not end in any death.
I'm waiting on that dude to get his head chopped off the second he's walking over and he's like, I would ask the princess for her favor. And I'm like, yeah, she's going to turn around and then turn back around and his head's going to be gone.
That is definitely what I thought as well. Yeah. So
very shocking to not have him, to not have Damon just snap. Because we see him kind of spiraling already in this episode.
Yeah.
He's just gone and done the police brutality raid.
Right.
So, yeah.
I was shocked. Damon yields. And he's holding a little, like, little shiv, knife, dagger thing, and he doesn't jam it into the guy's knee, and then he doesn't, immediately stab the dude in the neck when he walks away. Like, he actually shows like a little bit of kind of knightly respect here, I would say. I'm just noting it.
No. This is a very important moment because there are a few of them throughout the course of the episode that paint Damon as not a horrifying, terrible monster all of the time, right? He has this moment of warmth when he first sees Rhaenyra for the first time when he gives her the Valyrian chain.
Also a little creepy, though. You know how the Targaryens love their incest.
I think they really wanted all of us to sit there with this moment for a second and go, all right, guys. Because I had the same thought. I go, oh, here comes the incest. And then I went, wait a minute, Ross. Wait a minute. Be an adult about this. That's his sister. He loves her. He's given her a necklace.
It's his niece.
Niece. Damn it. That makes it less solid ground for me. Okay, maybe it was sexual. Never mind.
I think that
nobody gets gifts. Nobody gets to give gifts anymore. Anybody that gives you a gift, relative or not, is trying to have sex with you.
There were to go along with the sex and the violence. Another thing that there's just a lot of in Game of Thrones, and obviously will be in House of the Dragon, is furtive glances. There's a lot of meaning, endowed on people's faces and imbued in their eyes, and the way that they sneak little looks and just have these little reveries, right?
For sure.
This is a moment that is absolutely supposed to be, you're at least supposed to, put your hand on your chin and give a little, squinty eyes here. Like,
yes.
Hey, now. Hey.
But what I'm saying, in all seriousness,
I think you are probably right. I think that they are making you kind of feel that way, but I also think that this is probably a healthy familial dynamic between the two of them. But who knows?
But the actual conflict that arises here, and that you're supposed to take away from this scene, in my opinion, is that this is the conflict the rest of the show, brother. These two individuals, right here.
Yep.
He could have choked her to death.
Yep.
Right there.
No, and
we've watched this dude. We don't know anything about this guy yet at that point, so we really don't know what to suspect. And they draw up the suspense around the necklace thing, and it's like you're supposed to see the foreshadowing in like the fact that these two people are going to be trying to kill each other. I believe is where we're going eventually.
Perhaps, or so at the very least, you know what they might be doing with each other? They might be playing a game
of Thrones. I thought you were going to make it sexual again.
But yeah, so this Kristen Cole guy, I think that's his name. He seems to also the fact that he does make it out of this.
He's going to be a character moving forward.
Makes it seem like he's going to be a character moving forward as
Somebody
well.
to keep an eye on. Sir Kristen.
Damon, Otto, they got beef. They don't like each other.
They do.
Damon picks Hand of the King's son to be his first jouster.
Because
another guy that surprisingly does not die.
Otto knows Damon is a psycho.
Yeah.
Does not want him to be the heir.
He's a psycho.
Clearly he's got some evidence to the fact.
Yeah, as they say, this dude's impulsive and violent. He's not fit. He's not suited to be
the Joffrey.
A king. He's the Joffrey.
You don't want this dude near the throne.
I had that exact thought. I was like, damn, Matt Smith is like charming, kind of cool Joffrey.
If Joffrey had grown up, you're looking at him.
And
pretty
maybe
much.
not been like a total, like...
Maybe less sociopathic than Joffrey.
A little less sociopathic, I would say.
But, so Otto does not want him to be king and does not want him in line for the throne, does not want him anywhere near the council at all, period.
Right. Yep.
As such, Damon picks his son to go up against. That's where oh God, he's going to kill this guy vibes immediately begin.
Right. Yes.
Which, again, shockingly does not happen, although it does seem to come close to it.
He does what I have to imagine is like people in the crowd seem to be like, he pulled the Rombard move, but like kind of like maybe that's like a cheap thing to do as well.
You talking about when he stabbed down in front of the horse and like flipped him over?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got the impression that was like a frowned upon, not honorable thing to do,
yeah.
but also that it would kind of take a shitload of strength to be able to pull off.
Okay.
Like a because you have to thrust down and across the dude's horse with your joust into the ground
with enough force to stop the horse.
That's
from
what
just
I'm
breaking
saying.
your joust. That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's a lot of arm strength.
That's what is this? Your lance.
Yeah, lance, the old lance there.
So. Yeah.
But, anyway. Today's episode is also brought to you by Mint Mobile. After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking with them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. So they cut out the cost of the retail stores and they pass those sweet savings directly on to you. Most of us stay looking for ways to cut costs and stack cash, and Mint Mobile is here to help you do just that while providing high-quality service online so you don't have to roll into some horribly run authorized wireless retailer trap or whatever. For anyone who hates their cell phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're looking for one or a family. And at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with your existing contacts. You can switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. Clam fam, to get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/dragon. That's mintmobile.com/dragon, mintmobile.com/dragon, dragon. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/dragon. So, let's get to the death of the heir and the queen. We knew from the trailer something was going to go awry here. Obviously, the setup with the succession situation was based on the death of the queen in some way, shape, or form. That's not information they were trying to hide from us going into this series, but we do have to see it play out. And now I know why they weren't trying to hide that information from us. It's because if you didn't know how it happened, it wasn't going to matter. You were going to be so freaking shook by watching it unfold that it would be a big deal. Mm-hmm. And that was certainly the case for me. I found myself wondering the moment that we meet Queen Emma, if she was going to die in childbirth, obviously.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big possibility, but it also seemed like there was enough sort of conflict brewing already that maybe there might be somebody who wanted her dead. I don't know. I didn't see it unfolding the way it did, though. This was, like we've just already touched on, a very powerful statement by the showrunners to kind of have the tournament unfolding at the same time as the violence in the birthing bed, and it just really laid it on thick how brutal childbirth was back in the day. But one thing I missed, and I can't wait to catch this with subtitles, did he name the kid Bane? Like from The Dark Knight?
No, I believe it was Baelor.
I was air for a day.
Yeah, I couldn't. I thought he said Bane or Bale.
I think it was so Bale is what I heard as well, and I was like, okay, it's got to be Baelor though, because I think that's another family name.
I'm gonna call him Bale.
Bale,
like a hay bale.
Yeah,
like bail out, which he did.
Yeah, well, and also Christian Bale, also in the movie The Dark Knight Rises,
ipso facto,
with Bane, the character played by Tom Hardy.
A Song of Ice and Fire.
And Tom Hardy
famously references all of this.
I also heard Tom Hardy. He's a British actor.
Yeah.
He's going to be in this show later. He's going to be Chris Targaryen.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Jason's uncle. Jason's buff uncle Chris.
Jason's buff uncle.
He comes
Chris.
down to train him. They're going to hit bench press together.
Yeah.
Anyway, so King Viserys has to choose between his wife and his child. The Maester lays it out for him. Look,
he's actually the way they lay it out for him is that he's got to choose maybe neither or the child.
Basically, you can take the child and your wife's going to die she's going to bleed out.
Yep.
Or they might both die.
Yeah.
But the truth is they might both die either way, which obviously is what unfolds.
Does happen. One other note that I have here, just to tie it back, they are praying to the seven here, I believe. Their gods are the seven.
There's also a 7-pointed star in Otto's Hand of the King office.
Yes, but there's also a werewood tree.
That's true. That Princess Rhaenyra
and Alicent are hanging out down by. So I thought that was
having girl talk.
Kind of cool to see the old gods represented down there as well. I'm not sure if that tree was in Game of Thrones, the original series, if that was something that was kept
I don't remember seeing a werewood tree
at the Red Keep. Yeah,
in King's Landing.
Like at the Red Keep, yeah.
But
so
yeah, it's interesting for sure. Bran's ass is in there, just by the way, just watching all this unfold.
Correct.
In the past. It's a sick thing to think about, but Bran Stark has seen everything we are watching. Mm-hmm. All of it. He might as well be one of us watching the show. He is the ultimate character avatar, or viewer avatar. Beep boop. Beep boop, Bran. So the baby doesn't make it, and they kind of glaze over this almost, like the guy's holding the baby and the baby's making gurgling noises, and you're like, well, that doesn't sound good.
Yes.
And he's kind of looking at it like, oh, this baby's fucked.
Yeah.
And it is, and it's obviously heartbreaking. I want to say shouts to Patty Considine for really making you feel it, because this is kind of something that when you put it up against the violence of the tournament and you're really trying to make it all be as impactful as it should, you got to have the king be as devastated as he would be having watched this unfold right there in the room. And that's the other thing. He's right there. He's holding her hand while they cut her open. I mean, he's witness to this firsthand.
Yeah. And it's a good time to just shout out one of the things that I found so great about this first episode is that across the board, the acting was impeccable. Everybody was good. Everybody was believable. There was not a single moment where I was like, I don't know about that person or that performance or that actor. And you and I just got done watching The Sopranos, arguably the greatest television show of all time. Shouts and thanks to everybody that rode with us for that rewatch.
Your first watch.
Oh, and my first watch over there on Patreon. But even The Sopranos, there are some moments where you're like, I'm not sure about that actor.
Massive genius.
Or that performance.
Yeah, there's multiple moments, for sure.
And it's one of those things that I think HBO has especially just nailed down. They just rarely miss on this type of stuff. But Millie, I believe, is like the actress's name that's playing Rhaenyra.
Millie Alcock.
I don't know how old she is in real life. I assume she's like late teenage years, maybe. But it's tough.
22.
22. Okay, interesting. It's tough to get young people there.
Man, you were way off.
I was way off. Quick question.
Well,
quick
she
aside,
looks super young.
How old do we think she's supposed to be here?
I would have guessed like something like 16.
16?
16,
Yeah, okay.
18. No, certainly no older than 18.
All right, so that makes it a little bit different because it's that she's an adult at this point, so she's an adult actor, not a child actor. But regardless, all the performances very, very good here in this first episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's very well cast, and it's one of the things about the show that when they put out the cast list for House of the Dragon that started to get people excited, because it seemed like you could really see the pieces fitting, how these people would play into a universe like we're seeing unfold now. So yeah, no, I'm 100% with you there. The performances through one episode were everything you'd want to see in this show. So at the Queen's funeral, Rhaenyra cremates her mother and brother with the first Dracarys of the series, and I just got to say, Rhaenyra outdid any Dracarys Dany ever dropped with the first one.
She's got much more of the
that accent
on
the Valyrian on
it.
The
Valyrian on
it,
it, yeah. The Dracarys.
Yeah, she really lays it on there. And she does the little like looks over at her dad like, I don't want to say it. I'm gonna say it anyway, but there's a lot in all those looks.
Another moment where Matt Smith as Damon is like
warm.
Pretty warm. Yeah.
He comforts her, seems to be the only one that kind of gets it out of, that's doing the empathy thing, that's not just doing the we are royalty and someone died and we must burn them and that is it. There will be no talk of emotions or feelings. We will move forward as one, which tends to be the royal thing to do. So, yeah, you're definitely seeing that, look, Matt Smith's character, Damon Targaryen, this is the guy that flies on his emotions, like by the sleeve of his emotions or whatever. I don't know what the saying is, but he's not holding any, bars. He's all out. Whatever he wants, he's going for, Barrett.
He wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what it is. A coat of armor of emotions.
Or wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah, he's not holding back. And when it comes to comforting his niece or whatever Rhaenyra is to him, yes, niece, or, giving a speech at the brothel, the local brothel, he's an impassioned guy.
Just lets it fly.
He's just got those emotions in there, Barrett. He's human, not a robot like his brother. Michael. Well, that's not his name. His name's Viserys. But yeah, so the funeral goes down. We get a Dracarys. It's very moving. And then Damon, at the same time, is... we've just seen him be caring and loving to Rhaenyra at the funeral, but then
he's off to celebrate.
He's got to throw down. He's got to have a party. It's a mistake.
Yeah.
You should have thought this through.
Big orgy going on here, by the way.
Big orgy. And I just look, I kind of thought about this and broke it down because it's a big moment here when he gets banished, right? Or sent back to his wife that he apparently doesn't care much for. He is really just rubbing it in the king's face at this point. He's already done a couple of few things that have made him have a weird image, right? There's guys that don't even want him anywhere near the High Council at all. And then he's off buying out a brothel, filling it with the City Watch, and giving speeches, almost making half jests about the king's son that died
the death of a newborn.
Yesterday. Dead baby jokes?
Right.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he really asked for it, is what I'm saying. This guy didn't try very hard to... He didn't seem super motivated to me to, make the nice, which concerns me moving forward, obviously, because he didn't try. So now I feel like he's going to go off and come up with some fucked up plan to kill all these people.
He might.
Yeah. So, also in a weird move, Otto Hightower, Hand of the King, sends his daughter...
Yes.
Rhaenyra's bestie, Alicent, to go comfort the king who just lost his wife and son in his chambers.
Yeah. What was your read here? What was your take on this?
Presumably with her vagine. I mean, this is a common theme throughout, what are they called? Oligarchies? What? Oligarchies?
Monarchies.
Monarchies.
Yeah.
Where there's all these people jockeying for position around the royal family, and they often sacrifice their own... daughters, sisters.
Your take here was that Otto was pimping out his daughter, basically.
Yes, that was absolutely my feel for it.
And do you think that we were already at the point where he was like, you could get pregnant by the king, or do you think it was like, you need to go set yourself up for potentially filling that role?
I think it was just, here's another angle. Here's another opportunity for me to show even further loyalty to this guy. Clearly, if my daughter goes in there, it's pretty likely I sent her, I think, was probably the read. But yeah, I mean, it just, it showed me that while Otto is also in the council judging Damon for, being a bad dude, he's also then sending his own daughter to bang his friend,
Yeah, I think
the
it
king.
was. I thought that was definitely one of the big points there is Otto thus far had seemed like a very level-headed guy, very loyal to the king.
Responsible.
Maybe a responsible kind of good guy. Alicent is obviously, best friends, good friends with
Rhaenyra.
with Rhaenyra, and we seem to kind of like her. And then he's doing something which feels pretty creepy and weird here, sending her, making her wear her dead mom's dress.
Yeah, I was very... and she's just recently passed, because Damon makes a crack about that, too. Didn't you lose your wife recently? So the dead wife dress thing, super weird.
Go in there and, again, we don't actually know to what ends. We don't know if he was, telling her to seduce him the day after his wife died. I think that's probably a stretch, but it's definitely showing some serious, ambition to... as our man, Lord Peter Baelish would say, continue the climb.
Yeah. Also, the modern day, or the, I should say, past day, Netflix and chill is to just take a good book over to a
the
person's
histories.
house. I brought a book is the same thing as I brought Failure to Launch to watch together.
Yeah.
Classic Matthew McConaughey rom-com.
Sure.
Terrible movie.
Actually, it's a good one. It's a good bad one. It's a bad movie, but it's a good bad one.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So Damon celebrates again by... Oh, yeah, so we already talked about that. Viserys ends up picking Rhaenyra, though. He sees all this unfolding. He's already getting an earful left and right about Damon, and then Damon's going and giving the speech and saying a joke about, the air for a day. I believe it was the line that really sent Viserys over the edge. So he calls him into his chambers, and we get this very intense scene. And I should note, earlier when we first meet Damon, it's Princess Rhaenyra walking into the throne room, and we get our first full-scale shot of the new Iron Throne, or the old Iron Throne, I should say. And man, it is sick. It's way cooler. It was always kind of a bummer that they chose this sort of dumbed-down version, because if you're not a book reader and you never read any of the Song of Ice and Fire books, you don't know that the throne is supposed to be incredibly complicated. Like thousands of swords are supposed to be piled into this thing and melted down all the hell over it. It is supposed to be a jagged mess of discomfort that cuts the king and is not pleasurable to sit upon. And it's not supposed to be. And that's sort of the point, right? It's supposed to remind the sitter of their responsibility to the realm.
Yep.
And it's, first of all, it's very clearly Rhaenyra's little bodyguard guy is like, dear God, I can't believe he's sitting up there. Like, you're not supposed to be up there, sir. But he's like lounging up there very menacingly, and then goes on to be really sort of like vaguely threatening to his niece. And we can't really tell what his vibe is. He's like, now you all have to deal with me still. And it's like, then it becomes clear, like, oh, he's kind of the uncle who just acts that way. She's not thrown by this at all.
No.
She's very, quick to turn around and allow him to fasten a necklace on her. There's no danger to her, but like I said earlier, they build the intensity of that scene really well. But so we end up seeing this, after all that, King has to make a choice, and he's certainly not going to name Damon after everything that has just gone down. So he's going to go against 100 years of tradition and name his daughter Rhaenyra Targaryen, Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, to supplant his brother Damon. Again, first woman ever named. Obviously sets the stage for everything moving forward. There's going to be a ton of conflict around this. There's going to be people on the council pissed off. There's going to be peasants pissed off. The poors are going to be angry. Everybody is going to be thrown into hysterics over the choice of this heir. And you've got Damon Targaryen, who's just been banished off to who knows where, and what the hell is going to happen with him. But we can get back to that in a second when we talk about what we think is going to happen next week. First, crazy moment here where King Viserys I takes his daughter Rhaenyra to the dragon head room, I'll call it.
Yeah.
With the last dragon that saw Valyria before the doom, apparently.
Right.
Like, looked back over his shoulder and saw the doom over his shoulder on his way out. Gigantic freaking dragon skull.
Yeah.
And he explains to her, or first he asks her what she sees when she looks at the dragon. He's trying to get a read on whether or not he believes her. One last effort to see if he believes her worthy of being seated on the Iron Throne. And after he gets that read, which I thought was rather, her response was kind of weak to me. I was like, oh, you could have brought it better than that. Come on, you knew why I was asking you. But she didn't. And then he goes into this story about how King Aegon had a dream that he called the Song of Ice and Fire, that foretold the end of the world with a great coming of cold evil from the north, great winter, which is coming. Point being, this dude is responsible for the winter is coming prophecy because he had a dream, like we had like a weird meal too late in the evening, and then it caused him to have a strange dream, and they've all been worried about this ever since. But it was a cool, to me, my question to you is this: what did you think about them tying the two shows together with this little sequence here?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked because it's definitely worth a few minutes of conversation here. I was okay with that little opening title card that referenced Daenerys Targaryen. We've all watched Game of Thrones. It was a nice like reference point, right? Like, this is how long ago this was.
Here's where we are.
And just to let you know exactly like how that connects to what you did, to what you've already watched, it's 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen, right? I was fine with that. Definitely cool with all little Easter eggs. There's a Baratheon here. You could have his tongue for that. Let the tongues wag. There were all these little like little connection points, little things that they were doing and showing that obviously are pieces of this world that we're familiar with, and you get to do like the little Leonardo DiCaprio meme, and that's fun.
Yeah.
At this point of the episode, they had me. It knocks it down like a half a letter grade for me, honestly, because I didn't think they needed this. And I don't know if this is in the book. I don't know if this is like actually true to the word of Gurm that this is a big thing that has to be said and passed down from Viserys here to Rhaenyra.
From Targaryen to Targaryen.
But it took me out of it, and like it's the Star Wars thing, right? You know how like every time Star Wars makes something new, it's never new. Like they just cannot help themselves. They always have to tie it to like Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Leia, C-3PO, R2-D2. Like they just cannot help themselves. They cannot tell an original story. Like they have to tie it to the Skywalker saga that is the original 3 movies started, because they feel that need to pander and service the fan. That's the feeling that I got here. It was like, okay, guys.
So you took
like,
it as lip service. You took it as...
I took it as like a piece of pandering and fan service that I did not need because I was already in on this episode and on these new characters. They had me hook, line, and sinker. And this took me out of it a little bit.
Okay, so I agree with you that it felt
like a forced reference to the show that didn't land all that well.
Here's my guess, and here's what I'll say. If it's in the books, I'm completely okay with this. If this was in Fire and Blood or if it was in whatever,
I'm with
fine. If they forced it in just to have a reference point, then yes, it hit a little icky. It was a little cheesy because it's not that it took me out of it. Frankly, I thought it was sort of mystical and cool because I was like, it's a cool element that this Targaryen king did have this dream that was a very accurate prophecy of what they were going to have to deal with, that rather than tell everybody and have them all freak out all the time, they have to carry it as a family and sort of keep this in the back of their minds. Not only are you ruling the realm, you also have to be preparing the realm sort of for what clearly Viserys I sees as an imminent doom,
right?
An imminent issue. And it ended up being more of like a Targaryen lore thing to me than it did like remember Game of Thrones? Member? It wasn't member berries to me. It was less member berries and more like here's some magical shit that is gonna tie to the old stuff that you might like if you like the old stuff, but also that just really gives a bigger purpose and overall meaning and feel to this family's lineage and their whole fucked up story, the Targaryens.
Yeah, but to that end, it's just not it's not a piece that I needed to be interested in the Targaryen lineage. They're fucking fascinating house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the reason I was
in front of like a 14-ton dragon skull.
The reason I'm annoyed is because I was already in.
Yeah,
which doesn't feel excusable, right? Like I'm like, okay, that just means I'm looking at it the wrong way. Not everything about the show has to be about selling us, all right? Like it's like some of it's just it is what it is.
And I think the other piece of it here, you called it mystical. It did have that, but then like you listen to Sapochnik and the inside the episode afterwards say that like he says that I think the exact phrase that he uses is like the White Walker problem.
Yeah,
but the White Walkers, they ended up kind of sucking and not really being all that big of a deal.
Yeah, but here's something you and everybody else in your boat is going to need to get over quick. Miguel Sapochnik is extremely loyal to what he made.
Yeah.
He thinks it was the coolest shit in the world. He doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't care how negative any of you feel about Game of Thrones or the way it ended. And I don't think he's willing to let the way the final episode unfolded unsully everything else that was there.
Yeah.
Which is your argument. You're that guy.
Yeah, but
this is his way of paying homage. Like, they did do what to you and I and to a lot of people is considered 5 at a minimum of the best seasons of television ever created. And if you're in his seat, you're not going to fucking thumb it in people's noses?
No,
I would.
Because the piece that he is referring to, the piece that he's connecting here, the connection point is from those last 2 seasons, basically. Like it's from the lame piece of it.
Okay, yeah. So here's the risk he took. Making any reference to that at all conjures up the ending to people, and that sucks. That's why I think it either was in the book or it was a very intentional decision by Miguel to kind of be like, look, y'all can be as negative as you want. This thing happened and was amazing, and I'm going to make reference to it. If nothing else, to me, it gives a little bit more depth to not only Viserys and Rhaenyra's relationship, but just, again, the Targaryen house as a whole.
Yeah.
And I like the elements of Game of Thrones, of A Song of Ice and Fire, of all the books that I read that do play with magic. And the idea, right, we had Bran before it went haywire as a 3-eyed raven was kind of a cool thing. All the Stark kids being wolf wargs or partially was kind of a cool thing. You've got the Targaryen dream deal now where like dreams are apparently a real thing, and that's neat too, on top of the dragon riding or whatever. So I didn't necessarily mind it. I thought immediately one of the people I was watching with was like, what'd you think of that? And I was like, oh, I can tell this is going to be a problem. This is going to be something people complain about, and I'm not going to like it. And I think that's when I started my argument toward the reverse, because this episode felt too good to let something that small weigh it down. And I know that's not what you're doing. I'm just saying. I know there are people listening who were fully turned off by that, like fully. And you got to let it go. We got to be able to move forward with a new story, make some reference to, we watched like 100 hours of that fucking show together. We can't just pretend it never happened. And there is still, the point is, for these people in this world that we are now watching, there is this looming, long off threat that now Princess Rhaenyra, the heir to the throne, has to carry in the back of her mind the rest of the way.
Well, of course, we've watched 60 minutes of this entire series. What's going to continue to bother me if that is like a recurring, looming, imminent threat that continues to
I don't think it will
play a role in the decisions.
Oh, I'd be shocked if you hear about it again.
That people do on this show.
No, you're not. I don't think you're going to hear about it again. Yeah, that was it. Which was my other read as I felt like there's going to be a level of concern which you're touching on. I don't think that's going to happen, man. Yeah. This was just simply a hat tip and here's another level, another layer to this whole Targaryen thing and what Rhaenyra is diving into. Today's episode is also brought to you by Manscaped. It is hot as dragon's breath outside this summer, which means it's even more important to keep your downstairs mix-up trimmed and clean, and you better believe that Manscaped, the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, have the best tools for cleaning aisle 5 in your pants. Time to clear out the bush and join the other 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code OCC. Manscaped has the full package you need for keeping your crops fresh. The Performance Package 4.0 is the only tool you need to keep your boys looking and smelling like the fresh tulips your partner wants. To start off, use the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer to get the most precise shave on your hedges. It is waterproof as well. No need to worry about watering your grass with this tool, equipped with an LED light, so you know it'll be a major asset if you're in the shower in the dark for some reason, which would be weird, but you could do your manscaping in the shower in the dark with the
I do that.
Lawnmower 4.0.
Yeah.
Then you can clear your holes and smell the spring air with the Weed Whacker, their nose and ear trimmer that is amazing. It's got a proprietary skin-safe technology, the first nose and ear hair trimmer I've ever used, and I love it. It's awesome, but the technology prevents nicks and snags and tugs in those delicate holes, and after clearing your nose, you can make sure to get rid of that foul ball smell with the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver. The Preserver is an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. The Reviver is a spray-on toner for your balls, so you can keep your boys from sticking to your leg and leave them smelling like fresh flowers. Finish off your grooming routine with the Plow 2.0. It's the perfect razor for the finest shave on your face. Because if you're using the Lawnmower 4.0 on your balls and your face, you're doing it wrong. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code OCC at manscaped.com. That is 20% off plus free shipping. Code OCC at manscaped.com. It's time to throw out your old hygiene habits and upgrade your downstairs mix-up today with Manscaped. Okay, so let's get back to our overall feelings and thoughts on what we saw happened here. First of all, a note on returning to the Red Keep. Did you have going back to Hogwarts vibes? Not quite as cheesy, and I mean that with all due respect. Hogwarts was aimed at a much broader audience of people, and as such was more child friendly. Mm-hmm. When we'd go back to Hogwarts for each installment of Harry Potter, it was magical.
Yeah.
It was incredible. You were stoked to be there. There was always some precedent to getting back there. And that's what this felt like when you finally go in with Rhaenyra and she's like running through the halls and you're like, oh, we're back. We fucking did it. We made it. All this time, Barrett. And I was, that was one of the biggest moments of the episode for me, is just seeing how they had nailed the feel, right? Because, look, as I said in our podcasts leading up to the season's premiere, I had concerns because of what the Lord of the Rings second trilogy did.
Yeah.
Where visually they failed to capture the same thing they had with the first trilogy. And it was weird and it felt updated and newer and it messed with all those elements that you and I have discussed. And this was sort of the final, I could let go of that fear when they were taking us through the Red Keep, and I was just like, man, it feels good to be back.
Yeah.
Felt good to be back.
Yeah, I got a little bit of that. There were some kind of overhead bird's eye view pans of the city, which I thought were also supposed to kind of remind you that the whole thing gets burned down, basically. Just kind of.
Well, also just how large it is.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
I thought they did a better job of painting up King's Landing as this enormous city and more importantly, population.
Yep.
than they did at most points in Game of Thrones.
They don't really do a good job of that in the original series until the final season.
Where they've got all that money to blow. But you got to remember, off this success of Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon had quite a budget to play with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, they. I'm sure the budget for this season was larger than the budget for any Game of Thrones season. That's just, because it's essentially the successor. It's to the execs. It's basically a new season of the same show.
Well, it was under $20 million per episode average, so that's under $200 million total.
All right, so maybe I'm wrong.
Definitely not more than the final season, I don't think. But that was ridiculous how much they spent.
Yeah.
It was also only 6 episodes, so yeah, I don't remember what the cost was.
Yeah, but great shots, great sets here. Fun to be back in the Red Keep.
Very much so. Where do you think we're going next week?
Like I said, I think we'll tone it down a little bit next week. I think that
get into the norm
a little bit. Well, we've set the stage here in this episode. We've had some fireworks, some really big. I mean, pieces of plot go down, character deaths already,
super impactful visuals.
So I think that I think we'll just kind of like probably move the chess pieces a little bit slower and start to get into some of the people talking in rooms next week, which I can't wait. I'm excited to see where old Damon is next week. I liked the jokes at the expense of the Vale were really funny. Who could forget all of the people that we met in the Vale? So we kind of
could forget.
We know that to be true. Lysa Arryn was
they breastfeed too
was
long.
Was a real
up there.
kook. Robin Arryn, just a total turd out there.
You can't be breastfeeding at 14, kid.
So it's kind of funny that Damon has gotten stuck with a lady wife, as they say, who is in the Vale.
They've got a moon door up there, Barrett.
They do have a moon door.
They toss people through it.
And
people aren't right in the head.
Obviously, and I don't know. Yes, I know this has been answered. I know that I can go find out this information if I want. But no second timeline in this episode. And I don't know if we're going to be jumping forward and then going back, or if we are only going to graduate into that future timeline and be done with this one. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
So
I've had people tweet stuff at me where now I'm even more confused after watching this episode where we clearly didn't jump forward at all.
No, not at all.
Minus the prologue, cold open into the present day.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, look, one of the things that's so exciting about finishing this premiere is that I can sit here and point to each main character and see where their loyalty is going to get, torn apart. Where the issues that they've got going. Like you've got Corlys Velaryon, played by Steve Toussaint. He's on the High Council, like you said, probably an olive branch situation. But his wife is still pissed off, if you didn't get that read off of her face here.
I'm excited for more Rhaenys, for sure, yeah.
Rhaenys is a woman scorned. It's not just the obvious that I saw that we were going to be playing with. Like I saw that, obviously, Rhaenyra was going to have issues with Daemon for the throne. Mm-hmm. Obviously. I feel like, based off the trailer alone, I had some concerns about Alicent and how she was gonna play into the situation with Rhaenyra. Now I have some major concerns about her after having seen the first episode. But it's just even more complicated than I imagined, having this Rhaenys queen who never was person involved, her husband on the High Council, Otto Hightower's sending his daughter off to smash the king for comfort, potentially, or just read to him. And Damon Targaryen's just been banished. There's all kinds of chaos unfolding here. And as I said earlier on in the show, that's the bread and butter of Game of Thrones, man. Give me the conflict. Give me the arguing and the infighting and all of the incest. I'm just kidding about the incest. But the rest of it. And yeah, obviously it looks like the conflict will really start to begin next week. This was all stage setting.
Yeah.
Just a full episode of like, here's what we're dealing with and here's what's going on, which is what you want with your pilot. So, going to be interesting to see what happens. As Barrett and I said at the top of our show, we will have one additional episode each week in addition to our recap and reaction show that we're going to be recording immediately after the airing of House of the Dragon, except for week 2, where we will be recording on Tuesday. Other than that, we're going to do our hotline calls and continued coverage bonus coverage, premium coverage, if you will, ad-free on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles every week. Mollusk Militia has a hotline number. Jump in that $10 tier if you want to watch the video and get in the hotline number and get the Discord server, or you can just pledge $5 a month minimum to support our podcast, support Bolin Media, support Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, and get an additional episode about each episode of House of the Dragon all season long on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Hope you will join Barrett and I there. We are really looking forward to it and really looking forward to taking calls from the Mollusk Militia. We're on social media, Barrett. We're on TikTok at Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, on Instagram at Oysters, Clams, Cockles, and on Twitter at Clams and Cockles. They all have to be different. It's fun that way. Like I said, full episodes on YouTube all season long. Go to bolinmedia.com/shop to get yourself some OCC merch. Follow Mr. Barrett Dudley at Barrett Dudley on Twitter and Instagram. Follow me at WR Bolin on Twitter and Instagram. Check out at Bolin Media on Twitter and Instagram as well if you want to follow the company. Bolinmedia.com is our website, and we will be back later this week. It feels good. Feels good to be back here in this place.
Very exciting.
With an exciting, successful first episode under our, as you said at the top of the show, with those nerves going in. You and I could have been sitting here for an hour talking about how dog shit it was, how they completely blew it, and how we were going to have to deal with the pickup. I mean, it would just be you and me roasting the show every week, I think, which is what happened with Westworld Season 3 for me. I don't want to relive that nightmare. I'm very happy to be here, very happy we have a high-quality product to enjoy together, Clam Fam. We missed you. If you're back, a lot has changed. You can find out a lot about what's changed in my personal life on the Ross Bolin podcast, but everything is housed under Bolin Media now. Oysters, Clams, and Cockles here at Bolin Media. And we're excited. Thank you for joining us. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles later this week. And then again, we will be back next week, Tuesday. It will be Tuesday next week. So it's the only week this season. We will not have our recap and reaction episode to you immediately afterward. Enjoy. Holler at us on social media. Please rate and review the podcast. Give us 5 stars or whatever they do on the other podcast platforms that aren't Apple Podcasts. And we'll be back for discussion of episode 2 next week, which is titled The Rogue Prince. Until then, peace.